Shut up and sit down.
I am a radical libertarian.
And we don't want the government to do a damn thing.
The current state of politics is unsustainable, politically, economically.
You deserve better.
It is about supporting, platforming, and assisting the people who are out here actually doing the fight.
You just take an issue that's important to you and do something.
There you go.
You are part of that declaration against tyranny.
Because no one brings tear gas to a gunfight.
This conversation gives me a little more hope for the future.
The one, the only.
Fight for liberty. This is the cherry on top.
This is FSM.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fight for Liberty. It's been a minute, but we are back here going live on Free Speech Media Corp. As always, I've got two awesome guests for you guys tonight. But first, as usual, we're going to give a little bit of shout out to a few of our sponsors tonight. Up first, as always, we've got Blood of Tyrants Wine. If you are looking to enjoy a nice night in, while also sipping on the blood and tears of your enemy and assisting in the destruction of the tyrannical state, look no further than Blood of Tyrants Wine. They have a nice Merlot or Pinot Grigio. You've got the blood and the tears of tyrants, and you can get all of that shipped right to you, as well as this wonderful stuff, their Liquid Freedom Energy Tea, which is what gets me through almost every show we do here on the network, and most days in between as well. Get yourself a can of these, or a case of these. It is it's great. 0 calories, 0 sugar, 100 milligrams of caffeine. So you might have to drink more than one in a day to replace your monsters, but it is good. Next up, we have Shroom. Growing shrooms now radically simple. Our wonderful friends over at Advanced Mycology and Shroom are selling these super cool grow kits where you can grow mushrooms of any kind, whatever mushrooms you're thinking, right at your own home. They can get you the liquid culture that you just inject right into there. That's super sterile, super clean, and really easy. Even an idiot can do it. My best friend has done it a few times, and he's a moron. So if he can do it, you can do it. Go on over. The link is in the description to check them out. And today we have a little bit of a special sponsor I haven't made a slide for, and I don't think the link is in the description, so I apologize in advance. But I need you guys to know that there is one more campaign going on. You guys thought that we're done. It's over. November, we're in the middle of November. We already heard enough about election season, but there's one more campaign that needs your attention. That is going on in Kentucky currently. There's a special election for state senate in Kentucky with a lovely woman named Wendy Higdon, who will hopefully be coming on the show here in a week or two. And she is running for state senate in Kentucky in a special election. Election day is December 16th. It is a super short race. We do not have a lot of time to raise money, get the word out, send out mailers, buy yard signs. Like it's all coming down to crunch time. So if you guys, again, I will tweet out the link here in a bit, but go check her out. Go throw her 10, 15 bucks if you can. And yeah, definitely go support that campaign. And then we can be done for 2025. But without further ado, I have with me tonight the chair and vice chair of the Classical Liberal Caucus, Mr. Sergio Ortega and Mr. Tommy Creuzer. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me on.
Move everybody around. There we go.
There we go.
Now the names match the faces.
Yeah.
Well, again, welcome on, guys. It's good to have you on, and I'm excited to talk a little bit more about the caucus. Thanks for coming back, I should say, Tommy, and thanks for coming on, Sergio.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having us.
It was my pleasure. So I guess I will just start off super simple, and tell me, what is the Classical Liberal Caucus, and why does it exist?
I guess I can take this one. So the Classical Liberal Caucus was created to kind of promote the idea that the libertarian movement should be focused around classical liberal thought. That is the thoughts of the liberals of the classic era, people like Rousseau, Locke, etc. These classical liberal thinkers that laid the foundation for the Enlightenment. A lot of people kind of get the mistaken idea that we're like the leftists of the libertarian movement, which is not really the case. I mean, you just take a look at the name, Classical Liberal Caucus. That's all we are. We're just people who admire the Enlightenment and think that libertarianism is best achieved if we push the ideas of the American Revolution and things that the American public already know, instead of having them read books published within the last 20 or 30 years, which is not going to take hold. You can't expect the entire American public to read that overnight, whereas things like the Enlightenment and the American Revolution, everyone already knows. So that's the basic premise of why the caucus exists. It's to push this message of classical liberalism through the Libertarian Party, and then from the Libertarian Party to broader politics.
I like it. I will say when I first heard about the CLC, I was very intrigued. I had mixed feelings about the direction it was going at the beginning, which I know we all can have some opinions on, and we won't dunk on anybody necessarily. But I really liked it in premise. It was very similar to the Pragmatist Caucus, in my opinion, which I was a member of at the time, where it was like, I love what you guys are about. I don't like how you guys are doing it, but I love what you see you're doing.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, organization.
Oh, that's how I feel about the LP at this point.
Very true.
So I know that you guys are both a little bit newer to the movement and the caucus and the party than some other guests that I've had on, or some people watching. And I love getting to hear not just the same old answer to this question, because it's almost always wrong, Paul. So tell me what sparked your guys' interest in libertarianism as a philosophy, as a word. Like, where did you first hear it, and then what dragged you in?
I am from Georgia, great state of Georgia. In 2022, we had an election for the Senate between Raphael Warnock and I forgot Herschel Walker was the Republican candidate. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was a member of the Republican Party, but I slowly started getting disaffected. This was the beginning of like the rise of the populist right, and I started just slowly backing away from the Republican Party. And I started looking at all the candidates in the race, including the third-party candidates. And little did I know, there was a little candidate, little known name, Chase Oliver, running for U.S. Senate. In that race, I took a look at his platform, and it was basically everything I believed in. It was fiscally conservative, while also saying we don't care about what you do in your private life. You do you, and the government will stay out of it. And so that was the first time I'd heard of a libertarian candidate. I voted for him in that race, and it went off to a runoff, and he made headlines for causing a delayed election of Warnock, who is currently sitting in the seat, and kind of just made a ripple effect here in Georgia just by that election. And it brought me on to the Libertarian Party. I joined the state affiliate, became a volunteer. I'm now sitting on the executive committee there. And I later joined the Classical Liberal Caucus, became a volunteer there. And now I'm weirdly leading it, which is so weird because it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, 2022. But now I'm here where I'm at, and it's so weird.
Yeah, for me, it's a relatively similar story. I'm from Illinois, so there weren't quite as many candidates, but I decided to take, it was a few years ago, and I'd started watching some like libertarian content creators. It was actually weirdly a lot of paleo-libertarian types like Mentis Wave, but I took an I Side With test and realized I was at that point like 90% libertarian. And for the 2022 midterms, I basically voted all LP other than some Republicans down ballot. And that kind of got me hooked into like the movement. But I think what really got me into LP activism and caring a lot about that is it was when Chase Oliver was kicked off the ballot in Illinois. The ripple effect of that was probably the best way to describe it. It was like a wake-up call where I was already kind of getting into internal politics by supporting him. But when he was kicked off, that really kind of sparked that I had to do something. I started volunteering more. I created the volunteer onboarding for the Classical Liberal Caucus because beforehand they didn't even have it. And I eventually became inspired to become vice chair.
Nice. Yeah, I think we definitely have a thing in our movement in our party where you can get thrown into the deep end very quickly. So Sergio, welcome to the club. I remember it wasn't technically the beginning of me being a part of the party, but when I moved to New York City in 2017, I went to one meeting, and the next meeting I got elected to the board. Exactly one month.
Yeah.
Actually, along with one of the founding members of the CLC, Rebecca Lau, who is a wonderful person and a good friend of mine. And I'm going to catch some flack for saying that one, but I don't care. We literally had we were members of a different county, she a lot more actively than I. We moved to New York City at about the same time, went to our first meeting together, and then both got elected as social media and events coordinator, respectively. It was just kind of got thrown in the deep end together, and it was great.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, other parties, you can be in the party for 20 or 30 years and not know who your state chair is. But when it comes to libertarianism, as soon as you walk into the doors, you're almost handed a position just because we need volunteers. It's like a constant need to prove ourselves to the duopoly voters.
Yeah, a big thing in sort of the libertarian movement is that we're constantly trying to build up capacity to parody the Republicans and Democrats. And although that's probably in many cases the right course of action, I know that does work a lot in Pennsylvania, but it is always kind of like an endless battle.
Yeah, I have kind of a hot take on this topic that I think, what you just said, Sergio, about the other parties not knowing who their state chair is, I think is something that we need to then get to what you just said, Tommy, about getting to that capacity. We need hobbyist libertarians. We need casuals, people who don't actually care, who throw maybe 20, 30 bucks at a race every year if they're interested, who vote libertarian, who maybe show up to a fundraising gala or an event or some thing we put on in a public park, but they're not going to show up to the conventions, county, state, or national. They're not going to give a shit who their county chair is ever. They're just libertarians as just a piece of the resume that's full of other normal people stuff, and they have a life and they go and they work and they do their thing and they just are a libertarian. We need to have more of that that's actually directed still at the party, like big L libertarian, where they still do vote and they donate a little bit and maybe they volunteer here and there for something random. That they're still somewhat active and reachable, but not invested, because that just rots your brain, as we've seen over and over again.
There's go ahead.
Yeah, what I really see a lot is that there's sort of some people that start as hobbyists like me, they end up kind of getting really sucked in due to the need for capacity. In 2023, honestly, I was considering supporting Vivek with his campaign. So I wasn't even it only wasn't until the Chase I started learning about the Chase and Lars campaign that I decided to look more at the LP tickets.
I sniffed Vivek out really quickly because I was a Tulsi Gabbard staffer, and they gave such similar energies that I was like, yeah, no, he's not going to do shit. That's just a waste of time.
I was much more naive in 2023. Yeah.
Sure. I do still have a lot of respect for him, though. I'm not one of these people that's delusional and thinks he is a libertarian, but I do think that he was the most libertarian candidate in either of the major parties in that race, just like Tulsi was the time before. And then you had Rand Paul the time before that, and then Ron Paul before that. Like, there's always that one that stands out that's actually kind of talking our shit, and then usually convinces a bunch of us to abandon the LP ticket and then go vote for whatever sleaze bag they endorse from the major party.
Yeah, basically, the sort of more libertarian leaning candidate, a lot of times they end up just getting completely backstabbed, and there isn't really there is like kind of like a ceiling there, where I mean, I remember I was watching clips about how Ron Paul was treated, and they would literally like ignore him when he was like the third largest candidate. The news would literally just skip his name.
It's almost like there's an incentive to ignore him.
Yeah, and I mean I feel like Ron Paul's one of the most egregious examples, because like you've got them literally locking the doors of the convention hall to stop his delegates from being able to get in and vote for him. Like, they went above and beyond in just some objectively crazy ways. Like, Bernie got his stolen from him, but that was backroom deals in a way that it was like kind of already decided by the convention, and people know it got robbed, but it got robbed in the same way we all get robbed every day by the elites. It's just kind of one of those things we're used to. The Republicans just did it straight into their faces. It still kind of blows me away to look at news coverage. Right. And then now you have them arguing in court that they can rig a primary because they're a private corporation, so it doesn't actually matter, and they're not like bound by any type of laws or regulations, which is technically true.
It's a private corporation using like public resources and funds for their primary elections, which is like, it's weird where the line gets drawn. I mean, it tells you a lot where the line gets drawn, but yeah. Yes, there's a reason all of us are here and not there.
True that. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen a more concerted effort in this past time around to pull people out of the major parties, like I did in 2020. Being part of like the Tulsi, like actually on her staff, and then being really in with a lot of the Yang and Tom Steyer and some of the other like 3% candidates, the libertarian candidates within the major parties. We pulled a lot of people from, I would say, roughly 40% of the people that voted for Tulsi Gabbard in the primary went on to vote Joe Jorgensen at minimum, and about 60% of her active volunteers and staff went on to join the party. Like, it was a huge chunk that just like me and Reed Coverdale and a few other people that were embedded in the campaign just were like, well, you want a better anti-war candidate? Check out Hornberger. Because that was kind of the most popular candidate at the time. So crazy enough, they went from like Bernie Bros to Mises Caucus in a year, because they went like Bernie to Tulsi to Hornberger, and then ended up being part of Reno Reset Takeover team. Like, there was a bunch of them ended up in that, which still kind of baffles me. And a bunch of people will argue with me and say that that's not possible because there were no leftists in the Mises Caucus, and nobody from the left could ever respond to that kind of messaging. I'm like, yes, they could. They did. It worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't even really about economics. If it was mainly about the anti-war campaign. That kind of stuff stuff had to have transferred really well, because not every economics is not going to be the main issue for most people. Or when I say economics, I mean more exact economic schools. Obviously, everyone wants economic relief, but the exact school that comes from, a lot of people are very flexible about that.
Yeah, and if you were voting for Tulsi over Yang or Sanders, then it's probably because of economics anyway. So they were even like easier to reach on that part. They were not full-blown commies and socialists. It was people who had come to the realization that you need free market economics with a strong government-funded social safety net. Like that's where they were like borderline minarchists, or not quite minarchists, but like honestly classical liberals, to pick a term.
I would probably pick like social libertarian, or like maybe in like state capacity libertarian. That's a real in the weeds term.
Really, I think a lot of people who vote for, I'm going to say the word extremist, but I'm not meaning it in the word extremist, but like people who support candidates who kind of fall in the fringes, they're typically not doing it because they agree 100% with the messages of that candidate. Like, I'm sure if you go to a Bernie bro and tell them, like, if you have a full-fledged debate about the merits of socialism versus like capitalism, I'm sure some of them would not be able to tell you anything about Bernie's campaign or about socialism or anything like that. Really, I kind of attribute it to like just lashing out against the system. Like, they just see a candidate who's like against whatever the system is, and they say, I'm going to support them even if I don't really know anything about them. Like the recent election of Mamdani in New York, I 100% believe that not every person who voted for him is a communist. I'm like pretty sure it was just someone who stood against the Andrew Cuomo old gentleman's club style system and said, this is an outsider, I'm going to vote for him even if I disagree with his economics. And that's kind of like that's kind of the energy I want to emulate here in the Libertarian Party, is just someone who is an outsider, but not so much that we scare them away, which is really hard to emulate because we're really good at scaring people away. Unfortunately, that's something we're really good at. So we just have to strike that really, really fine and small balance between being an outsider who's slightly radical while also not purity testing our way out of the room and scaring people off.
So as a New Yorker, first of all, I cannot be happier than seeing Andrew Cuomo lose the same race twice in a row. I fucking love it.
Exactly.
But I think one of the big takeaways from that campaign for me was from the primary. What actually put him on top was just to use a different caucus term, bold messaging of the campaign, and just unapologetic messaging that he had, where he really was the most socialist candidate on the ballot economically, and he did not shy away from that. And you had a bunch of other people in the primary that were basically the same as him. There was like a contingent of like 4 DSA candidates that were all endorsed by the DSA. They all had almost the exact same policies, most of the same campaign. But the other campaigns just tried a little too hard to politic. And I think he still was playing politics, but he was playing the new game of politics where you don't look like you're playing politics and you're just going out and being with the people and being a little bit silly and a little bit stupid, letting there be gaffes, letting there be just dumb shit, letting there be a black and white campaign ad of you eating fucking rice with your hands like a moron, just not caring about any of that and just full speed ahead. I think that's what got the people that you're talking about, the ones who are just like, fuck the system. They didn't want somebody who was saying, fuck the system, but not too hard. Let's not rock the boat. They wanted, fuck the system. We're on a new boat. That boat can sink for all I care. Let's go. And I think that's what won out, and something that I think we could do a little bit more of in the LP. Because those other campaigns, they were ideologically consistent. They weren't pandery. They were just trying too hard to Mike Termot it and come across as approachable and reasonable and professional still, and like old guard with new ideas. And, you know, same with Johnson, Jorgensen, you know, a lot of our candidates, they try to, and even Chase, I'll give him this critique as well, by the general election, was very much one of those, well, we can't talk too much about this. We have to make sure that we're talking to both the left and the right evenly. We have to make sure we have to do this. And it wasn't all him, it was the team and everything. But I almost think we, like a Hornberger, I didn't support him in the convention, but would almost do better because he's just unapologetically himself.
Yeah. Sadly, the issue with I'll go back to Mamdani real quick in a little bit, but on Hornberger, I think the big thing in 2024 was that the sort of plan for the LNC and the plan for the convention were two completely different plans. And if a sort of divided house like that can't stand, I honestly at this point think no candidate would have done that well if the changes started at the convention. If we started changing stuff like in late 2023, we probably could have gotten a much better outcome. But I think by the time of the convention, there was a lot of big problems that I'm not sure that any candidate could have solved. Not to say Chase is absolved from everything. Not to say any candidate was perfect, but I'm just saying that a lot of those problems were like before the convention. On Mamdani, a big thing is that a lot of his supporters would not. Honestly, you could probably convince most Mamdani supporters that rent control is bad. You could probably convince most of them that a lot of free buses could be bad. The big thing is that they thought Mamdani cared. That was a big one. They thought Mamdani cared about their issues, and that's when we have to have libertarian candidates think about, because the stuff like affordability are things that libertarians win on. I mean, look at places like Texas, where this was actually something the Democrats did, but they deregulated zoning and rents immediately started dropping. Same in Minneapolis. Why aren't we messaging on this? That's like that's where libertarian policy would absolutely win out, because do you know what lowers the rent alarm or the rent control? Actually allowing houses to be built. Being a YIMBY is way more effective.
Shocker.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Move the supply curve forward, the price goes lower.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I miss about... Sorry, go ahead.
The politics is just a popularity contest. I mean, you're right. Mamdani just appeared more like authentic in that he cared, and I guess that's another issue that we kind of have to address. But I don't know. We're the third party. It's not like we have a personality of being the old guard. We're obviously not. So I don't know. I don't know how that would apply to libertarian candidates.
It's more about looking like you care, not just that you're different, that you care.
I guess
those are slightly different things. It's not just not being old guard, but it's about looking like you care about people's issues. And when I say looking, that doesn't mean libertarian candidates don't already care. They obviously do.
Unless you're Hornberger.
But it's about showing that to voters.
Yeah, and we have a lot of people that don't know what we're actually about, but have heard of us, have a predisposition to assume that we are all unkind, uncaring. I think like the most popular libertarian example that people know of is Ayn Rand, which is super terrible because she's not even an actual libertarian.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of energy they expect from us, is that Hornberger style of campaigning. I'm not going to keep shitting on him too much. I do respect him a lot. But he is just unapologetically, fuck you, die in the streets, I don't care. I'd rather you die than my rights be infringed, which is a valid take, but not what hits the nerve that you guys are talking about with the, like, we care about you and your issues. He's just like, here, let me tell you about why not caring is actually better. That's not quite the same.
In Georgia, we had a candidate in the past, way before I had even joined the party, who it was a televised debate between the Republican, the Democrat, and the Libertarian candidate for, I think, governor or secretary of state. And one of the moderators asked all three of the candidates, what would you do about the no, actually, it was a question tailored only to the Libertarian candidate. And the question was, what do you say to people who are on welfare who need the assistance? And the response was, get a job. And I was like, that's not the response. The response is private charity, private help, not get a job, go screw yourself and die in the street. That's not going to win votes. I mean, he was a great candidate. I love all his messaging, but that was just such a mess up. And it's a clip that sticks around here in Georgia politics as like the example of how libertarians are just heartless. And, you know, we're just here to shrink the state. And if anything, if there's any side effects, we don't care. We just care about shrinking the state. That's it. That's not what we're here for. That's why on my on Twitter, I call myself a bleeding heart libertarian, is because I care about shrinking the state, but I also care about the side effects that come from shrinking the state. And I'm sympathetic to people who are on welfare, who are on government assistance, and I'm willing to help them. I'm just not willing to do it through the state because I know how the state works. I know the side effects of state welfare and stuff like that. So that you're right, is that we have to kind of put ourselves in a position that we care and that we're outsiders, we're not the old guard, and we also care. And we care because of our economic plan.
Yeah, it's important to realize that a lot of people that are on welfare, they are not the perpetrators.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cycle of poverty.
We can't treat them like that. As well as an example I always think about is mutual aid societies.
Yes.
Mutual aid societies at one point had healthcare like basically the cost of a Netflix subscription. And it was to the point where there was like a crisis that healthcare was almost too cheap. At least as far what the industry magnates were saying, that healthcare would become way too cheap and it would degrade the being a doctor. And that ended up causing regulations that kind of destroyed the cheap healthcare system in the US. It wasn't perfect. It didn't really have full coverage of everyone. You had to kind of be like sort of an upstanding citizen to join a lot of these fraternal societies. But as well, some of them were racial based. But it was vastly superior in many ways to modern healthcare systems and affordability.
I'm going to quickly plug the David T. Beto book, From Mutual Aid to the Welfare State. But yeah, I mean, we used to have mutual aid societies that took care of each other. And yeah, they were racial, but the reason they were racial is because that was a way to further your identity and further your class when during a time where the government kind of was okay with like black people being beat in the street. When you had African American mutual aid societies, it was a way to coalesce identity and to coalesce your group. But then we get FDR, who comes in and kind of expands the welfare state and puts those organizations out of business. I mean, again, it's just, there's an interesting study about how government, the side effects of government welfare beyond just economics. It stretches to everything. I mean, once you put a lot of people on the government system, like we see it now with the shutdown, when the government shut down and everyone was concerned about SNAP benefits. Had we had mutual aid societies, that wouldn't be a problem. Obviously, the government shutdown wouldn't affect them. But because we tied them to the political system, their benefits, their ability to live is subject to politics. It's a bad system because of this. and we don't really talk about it because like it's seen as like a very, oh, you don't care about poor people, you just want to get them off Snap. Why should we vote for you? And unfortunately, people fall into that bit. They fall into that trap and say, yeah, we shouldn't care about poor people, when I'm trying to say, no, we should care about them. We just shouldn't care about them through the state, because that's not a good system, as shown recently.
Yeah. And I honestly, I go on a small little tangent here, because I think we're seeing right now, in my opinion, one of the biggest libertarian told you so's since the party's founding, where like I'm being proven wrong in what I believed very strongly up until about 2-3 weeks ago, which was that if you push the Rothbard button and got rid of Snap, people die. Like guaranteed. People starve. Don't push the Rothbard button. What we've seen is that even just hovering your finger over the button makes hundreds of millions of dollars worth of like community aid become readily available through different people and companies and corporations and organizations, and everybody's out here trying to feed everybody. You've got thousands of new food banks across the country. You've got literally tens of millions of dollars of food just within the last month being donated. I don't think people die if we push the button, right? Like if we did it right now, Trump figured out a way to actually say fuck you, and we don't give out the Snap money. I think I might have been wrong, and I think maybe people don't die, and I think libertarianism might actually work instantly, not even just like after some time of evolution.
Or like transition, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of that kind of stuff is very spontaneous, as Hayek would put it. That those kind of the outcomes of liberty are very much something that are to be discovered, because a lot of stuff like say free banking, we don't know what we honestly are not 100% sure what modern free banking would exactly look like. When I say free banking, I mean not just like currency competition, as Hayek put it, but like the system of like Scottish free banking that existed a couple hundred years ago in Scotland, with like competitive gold standard note issue.
Yeah, it would be an interesting world for sure. This gives me more hope than I have had for a while, though. That's for sure. I again severely thought that like I am an anarchist. I do believe that would be the best thing, is to have no government. But I really didn't think that people would snap to helping each other this well. I knew that people would try. I wasn't expecting them to succeed the way that they have, and have just the massive outpouring and like celebrities with tens of millions of followers being like, you know what? I just realized we don't need the government to feed these people. We can do it ourselves. And I'm like, thank you. Please keep saying these things. Was not expecting that. So tell me a little bit more about, and kind of transition towards the future, what the kind of goals, objectives, and timeline going forward looks like for the CLC.
Well, me personally, I'm only chair for a year, and then I have to run for re-election coming up soon, actually. But my goal has always been to kind of further our reach. Now that, in my opinion, we've kind of moved past 2024. Now we're just kind of looking at the horizon. I don't think we're having to do the whole internal caucus fighting anymore of like 2022. We don't have to do that anymore. I kind of think we're past it. So I'm more focused on just trying to push our ideas instead of like our past predecessors who focused on we're better than these guys. I want to say we are better than the general politics. Because sure, we can do caucus fighting. I mean, that's not. I mean, it was kind of fun in 2022. Got annoying a little later, but it was somewhat fun. But it's not effective for getting any votes. And I'm really focused on trying to expand the party, not the caucus. I truly do believe that classical liberalism is the only libertarian party that could effectively communicate to the American people and win some election. There's probably going to be disagreement. I mean, some anarchists out there say that we need to be ideologically pure, and that would be more effective. That's a whole debate in itself, and I'm obviously of the pragmatic stance that we're not going to win if we preach Rothbard and Mises and names that the American public have never heard of. But again, it's anybody's, it's anybody's dice roll about whether it will win. I'm just here to push what I think is most effective, and that's the American Revolution, the Enlightenment, etc. So my goals for the caucus has been to influence the party in its direction towards classical liberalism, and to focus more on electoral politics so that we can maybe influence some state elections, maybe actually build up a coalition of people who are knowledgeable about libertarianism because they get here through the American Revolution ideals. Because right now, if we only build our donor base based on who read the most Mises and who read the most Rothbard and Hoppe and the rest, if we build our donors off that, we've got like at most 60 people. But if we message and say, how many of you agree that the Bill of Rights is good? At that point, we've got more people who are receptive to that message because they know what the Bill of Rights are, presumably. And so that's been the goal number one of the caucus. Goal number two, recently we've been looking at kind of picking up where the party has left off, where we've been endorsing a lot of local candidates, mostly in Ohio, because our Ohio team is just impressive. We've been endorsing candidates. I'd really like to go back to financially helping them, but our caucus is not in that position yet. Maybe in the future, once we get past election or past convention, we'll see. But obviously, I'd really prefer if the Libertarian Party did that themselves, if they financially helped our local candidates. But they're also not in that position right now. So this whole thing kind of falls back on goal number one of building the donor base through classical liberalism, through ideas that the American public already know, that they are more receptive to, rather than ideological purity testing.
Yeah, for me, I'm definitely not about neglecting Mises or especially von Hayek. I mean, Justin Amash, he very much uses a lot of Hayekian ideas and terms in his stuff, and his message actually gets across very well. It very much synchronizes with the sort of older liberal ideas, as well as like a lot of our quotes are from Mises himself. So I would actually slightly disagree with Sergio there, where people like Mises, Hayek, and Bastiat are still fairly important, but that needs to be kind of
Bastiat's great.
Oh yeah, yeah, I like Bastiat, especially on tariffs. He's really great. We have to kind of show why that synchronizes so well with the American Constitution and why that works so well. So I will say that one big focus I hope the LP can get into soon, and this is probably where the some more anarchist types may disagree with me, it's about election reform. We absolutely need to throw our weight behind that and be part of those coalitions. Ranked choice voting isn't perfect, but it is vastly superior to basically telling most people that if they vote libertarian, they will be punished, because that's basically what Duverger's law is. The sort of people that study elections basically have an entire law saying that if you vote for a third party, you will be punished. And it's critical that we look into making sure the election system doesn't have that. Whether it's approval voting, whether it's proportional representation, we need to get off of first past the post. Basically filling in the bowl just for one candidate, and that's it.
Yeah, I might disagree with you that it should be a main focus of the party. I do think it should be a main focus of the movement, because I am still a prag at heart, and I think the only focus of the party should be winning elections. That's that, like literally nothing else. Everything else can be done in pacts, organizations, nonprofits, and companies.
That's very fair.
I do want to go back to something that you said in your answer, Sergio, because I think that there is a way to do ideological consistency like being ideologically consistent without messaging the craziest shit about your ideology. Like you can believe all of that all the way down. You could be an anarchist through to your core. Like I am an anarchist philosophically and in practice, like very much so. But I still know how to talk about the Constitution to somebody who respects the Constitution. I know how to talk about how we're the most Marxist party to a Marxist, like, because we genuinely are. You want a party that's gonna fight the proletariat and return power to the working class? It's us. It's not either of the other two. It is us. I can message that too. And if I think many people within the party, and a lot of the times it's like the nameless, faceless fucking jackoffs online that just clog up the comment sections of our campaign posts and things. But way too many people get caught up on, just because you're not saying the craziest thing means that you don't believe that craziest thing. And that's just not true. Like, I think seatbelt laws are retarded. They shouldn't exist, and New Hampshire's doing it right. I'm not going to campaign on that. Unless I was campaigning in New Hampshire talking about how, like, we're already the most libertarian state, blah, 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 blah. Like, I would do it there. Or maybe in another state where it's coming up as an issue, people are thinking about maybe repealing the law. All right, we support it wholeheartedly. Go with those people, speak at their events, message to them, because we do believe that those laws are stupid. Most laws are stupid. But you don't have to just come out the gate being the dumbest person you can be.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, we can't... There is the frequent libertarian stereotype is that we're all people who focus on abolishing the age of consent because we think the government doesn't have authority to govern that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you want to make the ideological argument of that, that's your thing, but that's not something you argue for in politics. That's not going to get you any votes. And so you can play the ideological game, but that's not getting you anywhere. So yeah, I agree with that point.
Yeah, and again, I agree with that point in philosophical practice, but that's about all I'm going to say about it on the show because it's not worth talking about. Like, I do think age is a kind of subjective, bullshitty thing that doesn't actually mean much, and it should be, things like that should be based much more on objective cognitive factors. But then you get into really dicey shit from there. And no politician should ever even say as much as I just said. I only said it because I'm not running for office. But yeah, I think that what we need to do better at is similar to the Mamdani conversation. Each candidate needs to pick a lane and just run down at full speed. whether they're anarchists or paleos or classical liberals or libertarian socialists or whatever. Pick a lane, stick to it, pick the groups that you're trying to message with, the people that you jive with, and just go and be unapologetically that. Don't try to, well, we can't piss off the other people too much, so we're not gonna, and you know, I'm gonna try to represent the whole party and run for everybody. No, we need to stop doing that, and we need to let the candidates be the candidates, and then the party maintains a ideologically consistent and pure framework that is big tent enough for all of those candidates to fit within it. And if somebody's running on something that's actually anti-libertarian, then we call them out for that. If you've got a Jeremy Kauffman, to call out Jeremy Kauffman. And even to, like, you know, some of the flack that Chase got, I think he had bad answers for some of his more like controversial takes, and he tried to make them libertarian and got argued with by other libertarians, and kind of walked back some of what he believed 3-4 years ago. I think that that's healthy, but the rest of what he was saying was purely libertarian. Almost everything Kauffman said in his 22 Senate race was purely libertarian, except for his like sarcastic-y things. But you know, we can have, going back to 2022, we can have a Chase Oliver for Senate and a Jeremy Kauffman for Senate running at the same time in the same country under the same party, bringing in hundreds, if not thousands, of people in their states, which both of them did actively at the same time. And you know, that's the Libertarian Party I want to see eventually, is one where we can just kind of let them do their thing, but then they run at it full speed, bring people in, and then they can learn about the other campaigns and the other kind of factions, just like the Democrats. There's so many factions in the Democratic Party, but they don't care if the other factions recruit, because it's all recruiting into the same party. It's still helping them win in the long run. They all still go behind the same one person at the end, regardless of how terrible they are. We should do that too.
Yeah, that's a good point, is that we get in the habit of kind of pushing out candidates like just because we disagree with them, like, and both sides are guilty of this. I'm sure, like, in 2022, when I was a Chase guy, I don't doubt there's probably quotes of mine out there where I'm saying Jeremy Kauffman should be kicked out of the Libertarian Party. And I'm sure there's Jeremy Kauffman supporters out there who say Chase Oliver should be kicked out of the Libertarian Party. Both sides are kind of guilty of this, like wanting to say we want a big tent and then simultaneously shrink the tent to just fit their people. Meanwhile, the other parties don't do that. You're right. You know, the Democrats have the DSA, and then they have the liberals, and then they have just the centrist oil money backed people. So they have a big tent and we don't, because we're really interested in purity testing. And I'll admit, I'm still guilty of it to this day. There's times where I have to catch myself and say, no, don't say that. I know you're angry at what someone said, but you know, deep down, they identify as a libertarian. They believe in the same things, kind of, you do. I'm sure if you sat down and had a coffee with them, you would agree a good bit of the time on like zoning reform, tax policy, etc. So why let like the small percentage of things disrupt what you believe? Like, and some of these issues are things that there's not a defined libertarian answer on. Like abortion, you can make a case either way, really. Yes. Whether pro-choice is libertarian, whether pro-life is. I've got a libertarian friend here who argues that government, if we are to have a government, it is to protect the rights of life. And so the question now begins: where does life get defined? And so it's like that is technically a libertarian argument for pro-life. So again, it's like, why are we letting these issues get in the way of the big tent when there's not even like a defined answer, nor should there be a defined answer. I don't think the party should have a platform amendment on abortion when it's like clearly something that can go either way according to the bare bones ideological foundation of libertarianism. So, I mean, you're right in that case.
Yeah, it's crazy to see gay people and like black women as some of the most popular people in the Republican Party, while there's Democrats running for statewide office that are pastors. Meanwhile, we can't get over like the tiny little minutiae disagreements within our own party. It's completely mind-boggling. And to your point about if you sit down, you'll probably agree on a lot of things. I can say from my own personal experience as one of probably the only people in the world that's gotten to have a 3-person conversation with me, Chase Oliver, and Jeremy Kaufman in the same room. It was great. It was a good combo. They didn't even Jeremy is a very nice person in person most of the time, as long as he's not drunk, and and even when he is, but he's actually kind of a very non-confrontational person in person until he goes above, it's a big bomb at the end of a long fuse type situation in person. So he went around. I was hanging out with him at PorkFest. We hung out with Nick Sarwark for a little bit. We hung out with Jeremy Kaufman, or with Chase Oliver for a little bit. We hung out with Mike Termont for a little bit. We hung out with the Free the People and the Kibbies. Everybody was cool. Everybody was chill. It was a great time. And the only person that Kaufman went off on was a Democrat who got up and gave a speech about how everybody should join the Democratic Party so they could vote for RFK Jr. and make sure that there were 2 principled libertarian anti-vaxxers running for president as RFK Jr. versus Donald Trump. He was a moron and deserved to get cursed out.
It's kind of a weird mind game.
That's what, yeah.
Right.
So, some of the stuff Kaufman says I really can't get behind, but yeah.
I think it's
way different in real life.
I think it's a social media thing, how we're kind of presented like most of the libertarian fighting happens on Twitter, and it's 260 characters is not enough to go deep into the personality of a person. Like when you see a tweet from Kaufman that's anti-open borders or pro-immigration enforcement, I don't really know how to characterize his stance. You look at that and you say, oh, this guy sucks. He's not a libertarian at all. But you don't really it's 260 characters. You don't know the deep part of him. You don't know his personality. You don't know anything, but you're making a judgment off that. And again, I'm guilty of this myself. To this day, I still have to catch myself before I hit send tweet, before I say something and say, oh, well, I'm not giving him a fair shake. I'm judging him based off one tweet, which is so little.
My Twitter does not have my real name on it. I have a little bit of plausible deniability because I do not have that filter before I send tweet. Something else I'd say is that a lot of maybe it's not necessarily a lot of tweets I see are in response to Kaufman, but with a lot of sort of what people would call left-right or classical Mises Caucus, those sort of debates, they're really about strategy and they're not about policy. Yeah, I find 90% of these conversations they're not really about policy at all. They're not well, we disagree about ending the Federal Reserve. All of us agree. All of us agree on a lot of economic issues. A lot of us agree on 99.9% of the social issues. It comes down to strategy. Especially you have the sort of more Javier Milei people that really want to emulate what we did in Argentina. Actually, the CLC is about to have an article on that, on Javier Milei. So expect that soon. It'll be first about his economic policy, then about his social policy. Yeah, those will be rated separately. You have the more paleo-libertarian type, the Mises Caucus. there's a couple libertarian socialists in the party, but it's very rare nowadays.
Yeah.
I do not see it very commonly.
Which is kind of
does
kind of
Roderick Long
unfortunate.
count? I mean, maybe kind of. Does would anyone count Roderick Long as a libertarian socialist? Not. It's like one of the things. Like he's kind of a Rothbardian, but he's also like he has a lot of stuff like kind of reconstructed from mutualism in his ideology as well.
Yeah. I find myself acting like one very often because I have to defend the ideology's legitimacy to retarded attacks, and because there's not enough of them left in the party to defend themselves.
Yeah, they don't. Like I remember one person, one like ANCAP actually decided to try to like explain anarcho-communism to like other ANCAPs, and like people like Kropotkin, they believed that like when you took bread from the shelf and didn't pay for it, you're basically homesteading the bread. You were homesteading it from the shelf. That was their sort of philosophic claim, was that like some bread on the shelf was basically abandoned property. It was definitely I definitely would not at all agree with it, and he said he didn't agree with it either. He said actually he even went on to say a lot of libertarian socialists back in like the 1800s, they really had like no proper concept of economics. A lot of them couldn't even like a lot of them commonly even confused like marginal and average costs. And I don't know if any of us are into economic, either of you two are like econ majors, but that's like a cardinal sin.
I was not an econ major. I used to make fun of my econ major friends as a business major because they had to take harder classes. Yeah, I actually, so I always refer to myself as an anarchist without adjectives because I personally believe that anarcho-communism and anarcho-capitalism are equally valid and equally retarded ideologies.
It's a good way to put it.
They both are great, and really, they're both great ideologies. What's retarded about them is thinking that one can exist without the other. You're never going to get all of society to agree to one. You're always going to have. If we actually had anarchy, you would have both and a million things in between, all over the place, and you would just get to move to Wyoming if you wanted to be a full ANCAP, or to Washington if you wanted to be a full ANCOM, or Nebraska if you wanted something in between, right?
Yeah, you're gonna get that variation with freedom. It's not gonna just be one thing. You may also get like the sort of David Friedman kind of like corporations figuring out what the best law system is, and that may not necessarily be the NAP. A lot of that stuff may be done by instead like torts and contracts, and the system that comes out of that may not actually be like anarcho-communism or anarcho-capitalism, be something completely different. Or there's a lot. I've been starting to see some more like Hayekian sort of anarchists that basically talk about how that kind of stuff, how exactly anarchism will be, is definitely something to be discovered. And I kind of already alluded to that in earlier parts of the conversation, with how freedom is going to be something like a lot of the outcomes of that are probably, although we can kind of like model them economically, they're to be discovered.
Yeah, we don't really know any of that stuff. And, to your point, it's quite likely that we never see either of those two ideologies come to fruition in our lifetimes, or in this cycle of civilization at all. But what we do know is that government intervention makes most things worse. And the bigger the government is, the more likely they are to commit mass genocide.
Yeah, doing something like protecting rights and free markets, even if we don't win, it's very much a worthy fight. Let's say we're the big losers in this cycle of civilization. We fought a good fight.
There's been a recent debate on libertarian Twitter about electoral politics in general, whether it's worth even being a part of, because a vote for anyone is a vote to legitimize the system. The more we vote, the more we kind of like make it authentic. And so that's one argument, but I don't see that. I've been recently going on a rant on it in my Twitter, just because I get the merits of the argument, but I also see that like you can't ignore the state at all. It's in every facet of life, and to ignore it is to, for me, most people who say they will ignore it until it starts affecting them, and at that point, it's too late. Like, if you're only willing to vote once it starts affecting you, then you're too late, because it's already taken up everyone else. I can't remember who has that one quote that's like, I didn't defend the communists because I wasn't a communist. I didn't defend the socialists because I wasn't a socialist. But now there's no one left to defend me. So, yeah, I mean, the fight against electoral politics has always been something weird to me that's been weirdly starting to grow in the Libertarian Party itself. Well, okay, let me say in the Libertarian movement. And then weirdly, the Libertarian Party is kind of catering to it, in my opinion. Like, we start listening to people who make complaints on Twitter who had zero plans of voting. Like, even if we abided by everything they said, they had no plans of voting at all. So it's like, why are we catering to these people? They're not. Like, this is like the last person you cater to. You should cater to the people. You should cater to voters if you're running an electoral campaign. Like, shocker.
Yeah.
If I hear one more person say that they're running for office and their goal is to tap into that 55 to 60% that doesn't vote, I'm just going to slap them. They're still not going to vote. You can tap into a portion of it, right? You can have record turnout. Again, Mondami, you can, but you have to have massive amounts of support from the 40% that does vote to give the other 60% the hope that when they vote for the first time in 20 years, they might win with their vote. It might actually be worth it. That's why they stopped voting, is because they were sick of voting for the 6th place person in the primary. You're not going to win them back over by continuing to be the 6th place person.
You have to cater your message to the non-voters. You cater it to the people who don't vote because they feel left out of the system. You don't cater it to the person who says voting is a sin, therefore I would never do it, because that doesn't make sense. That's not the non-voter you want.
That's also very, very true.
Again, this is only a problem that we have because one great thing about our party is that we're very ideologically focused and backed up with. The problem is we also fall to it. It's it's an aid and it also hurts at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with just fucking everything you've just been saying. I understand the thought process of like voting is violence or whatever, but it's a dumb thought process. And I can appreciate how ideologically consistent we are as a party and as a movement. But I think that we need to take just like a half a step back from that to just say, anything's better than nothing. And if that means voting for somebody who literally gave up on her campaign 2/3 of the way through to go back to teaching at Clemson, then okay, that's who I'm voting for, to maybe help my state get ballot access and maybe I'm going to keep talking about her. I'm going to keep trying to get other people to vote for her because maybe her message will resonate with them. And I don't have to like her. I don't have to like how she's campaigning. I don't have to like most of her campaign team. I don't have to ever talk to her again after November's over. But she's my candidate, and I am going to support her because she is by far the best out of all of them. That's how I felt about Joe. It's how I felt about Chase. I like Chase a little bit more. But I don't care about the minutia or the anything. I was still shouting Chase from the rooftops. I wouldn't join his campaign before or after the convention. I wasn't going to get involved in any of that shit. But my non-libertarian friends, they all heard about him. My gay non-libertarian friends, they heard about him a bunch. You know? And most of them had already heard about him because I was talking about him in 22 also. Because this is part of why I have this show too. I like to platform the people who I think are doing a good job. And if you just watching the intro that I have, I go straight from Dave Smith to Josh Eckel. Like, I don't care who you are. I will platform you if I think that you're doing a good job to spread the message. And to bring the conversation full circle, I think what we need to do is to not be so bought in and be just like a slightly more casual and hobbyist about our obsessions with the party. Even those of us that have board positions who are fully invested, we need to be just like a little bit less invested and not give a shit what's going on 7 states away from us in a state house campaign where somebody said something that kind of pisses me off. Not my problem.
Yeah. This just kind of all goes full circle to the pragmatism or radicalism debate that we're having, that we're going to have in 20 years from now, that we're going to have forever, as long as this party lives. And it's so unfortunate that we're probably going to always be cursed by it and probably always going to fall victim to it. But we have a caucus. We have a caucus here. We're trying to make these ideas known and to at least let people recognize, hey, I know you're having this ideological debate, but also you should not abandon the party no matter what. Last election, Rechtenwald would probably be my least favorite candidate. I still would have voted for him in the election. Just because
Same.
Like a vote to the party is a vote to the party, even if I hate the candidate with all my guts.
Though on pragmatism and radicalism, I actually like what Justin Amash says about this, is that the reason we actually adopt principles is to counter the human impulse to place short-term benefits ahead of long-term prosperity. Principles, in many cases, can be a triumph of pragmatism over extremism. This is especially true in other ideologies that are not libertarianism. Maybe some people in the LP would disagree, but I actually think that definitely does hold very true.
I am personally a big advocate for radical pragmatism.
I love that term. I love that term so much.
Like I said, I was on the national board of the Pride Caucus when they dissolved. That is where I still feel the most at home, is how they were supposed to be. Again, what they said they were about, not what they actually did. But a non-ideological, we don't care what caucus you're in, we don't care where you land on the Nolan chart as long as it's within the L box. We don't care how you message, we don't care who you message to. What we care about is infrastructure, training, platforming, fundraising, getting the message out there better and more professional than we currently do. I care so much less about what someone is saying, especially when we're talking about campaigns. As long as you're not dumb or stumbling over your words the way I do on most of these shows, I care much less about which group you're trying to message to and which brand of libertarianism you're saying than I do your camera quality.
Yeah.
Are you walking down the street with an iPhone and headphones and talking to your phone? Or are you walking down the street with open hands and a cameraman walking backwards recording you? Even if it's still on an iPhone. Huge difference, right? Adding a professional camera, big difference. That's why I had so much love for Kaufman's campaign, because he had Dan Smots up in New Hampshire like 6 different times recording ads for him. We like that is what I care so much more about than whether you're pro-life or not. Like, I don't care. I want to see the professionalism and the infrastructure. I want to see data be treated correctly and gathered correctly. I want to see donor logs from years and years put together. I want to see people's top issues actually saved into the database with their contact information. I want things to run correctly. I don't give a shit about your, like, where you land on your ideology past that.
Yeah, I mean, I care about winning,
Mm-hmm.
which is about the exact same you just said.
Before Liquid Zulu decides to tell us, we do not mean philosophical pragmatism. I didn't want. Some points he made about Dave Smith, I honestly kind of agree with, but a lot of his points were based on the idea that being pragmatic is the same thing as philosophical pragmatism. Those are different things. People that say they are pragmatists do not mean philosophical pragmatism.
Usually.
Yeah, they mean like practical. They don't mean like, oh yeah, what's true is just what works. Almost no one thinks no one has that idea of what truth is.
Yeah.
I
just needed to make that clear.
I didn't want to bring up the name or the video, but a lot of what I've been ranting about has just been like subtweeting that.
I still haven't watched the video. I've seen a little bit of it. I've seen the conversation.
I think I'm
some of the earlier stuff.
I think I'm like an hour and a half in.
He called us leftist infiltrators. I know Zulu did.
Nice. I'm supposed to have hosted a debate between him and Michael from the Capitalist Party, and that kind of was put into the ether around the same time we started talking about doing this episode, so it kind of fell by the wayside. But I might actually pull the trigger on that now. I had never heard of Zulu until Michael was like, "Hey, host a debate with me and this dipshit."
I mean, I don't hate Zulu, to be clear.
Neither.
I like his video on like the economic calculation problem and stuff. A lot of his older content, honestly, is really good. That was just something in the video that really irked me, because it was clear that's not what Dave Smith meant by being pragmatic.
Yeah, he's trying to get Dave to debate him, and the debate me bro energy is
I
like
hate it. I hate
the biggest turnoff I can have. Yeah,
I call them philosopherians, and they are just the worst class of libertarians ever. Like, God help them. I love them because, I mean, they're necessary. You have to have a philosophical backing and a foundation to your party and to your ideology. But then it should, like, just debate me energy in general. Like, debates in general are just like terrible mediums for working things out. Like, it's just it's not meant to be. It's not meant to work things out. It's just meant for like one-liners and like, you know, owning the libs or whatever. 2012 energy they want to emulate.
Yeah, arguments like that are meant for books, papers, and articles.
Exactly.
Not for,
anytime like someone says like debate me, like if they're talking to me and I disagree with them, I refuse. I'm not doing a debate. I will talk to you through message. I will talk to you in like blog posts, and we can go back and forth after doing research. But I'm not going to show up on a stage or on a video call and you expect me to have all the answers to every single facet of my beliefs, ideology, and explanation present with me at all times. Like, I'm a very pragmatic guy when it comes to the libertarian philosophy. I'm very focused on consequences and consequential arguments. So like the argument that government's bad because it produces an ineffective solution. I'm not going to be able to produce every single study on inefficiency at a debate on a stage or on a podcast in a video call. Now, if you give me time to research, then I can give you stuff.
But a lot of that kind of stuff is like multifaceted.
Exactly.
Multifaceted, multidisciplinary.
It's something that's meant for sitting down at a computer and thinking about, not sitting on a stage with lights and cameras on you where you have to watch every word. Because if you don't watch your words, your opponent just uses it as like a one-liner against you.
Yeah. I mean, even if you perfectly prepared, you would end up just throwing studies at the person. You know? You wouldn't really be arguing at them. You'd end up just kind of throwing studies the entire time.
Yeah, it just ends up being a recommended reading list.
Yeah. Both the debate. That was a really great debate. We now have a 100 book reading list. with 30 academic papers, and which each of those have 40 citations in them.
I love be like Spike Cohen with David Hogue and just show up with a stack of papers.
Okay, to be fair, that was really funny. That was really funny. But that probably isn't the best way to settle disputes. It was a very funny way to settle disputes, to be quite honest. Like, if let's say I was debating Sergio, and I just gave him a massive reading list about stuff that supports my point, obviously I'd look really cool. But the thing is that it really wouldn't be great argumentation. You aren't really proving anything by giving someone a reading list.
Well, Spike was never going to convert David to be pro-gun. What he was going to be able to do was make David look like an idiot in front of a bunch of pro-gun control college students, which I think is, unfortunately, as wrong and stupid as David's quip back about those papers was, because like
what was it? I forget.
Well, because the issue was that the actual graph that Spike had printed out for the first one, and so the only one that David actually looked at was from Wikipedia. The study was not it's a legitimate study that's cited and sourced and all of that, but the visual graph was created for the Wikipedia article about the thing. So that's what the little URL at the bottom of the page was. And so that's what David honed in on, was that if I submitted this as a source for a paper, I would get an F. And unfortunately, that was as factually incorrect. And to your guys' point, factually incorrect, stupid, didn't even read the whole paper, but got the point. As far as the audience is concerned, which is all that really matters in a debate like that. If you're not trying to convince the other person, then it's just about making that person's argument look silly and making your argument look palatable to the people watching that are maybe undecided.
Which is not what a debate should be about. It shouldn't be making the other person look silly, because people do things for what they believe is logical reasoning. Like David Hogg, he believes in gun control because he thinks too many kids are being killed, therefore we should do something. I'm sure Spike will agree that kids shouldn't die to guns. It's just that they diverge at what should be done. And so that's the whole thing. It's just trying to make your opponent look stupid despite you probably agreeing with them on the premise it's why debates will never work.
Yeah. I do enjoy hosting them, and I think they're better than a Twitter thread, in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair.
They're better than a real-time Twitter thread, where you're just actually going back and forth in those little bits. I would much rather hear somebody actually articulate their, and sometimes it turns into a shit show. If you guys want to watch one of those, I did a wonderful debate between David Smith and Mark Pellegrino on Israel versus Palestine. It was a shit show. It was just as much of a shit show as their Twitter feeds are. I got a little too high. I forgot I was moderating and just kind of sat back and watched, and it was a shit show.
I mean,
but
you were high when you talked to me, so
I'm usually high on the show, most times.
It was great. I mean, it just felt like we were bros hanging out. So
That one, there was some audio issues, so I couldn't really get a word in edgewise for a chunk of time. So I just kind of sat back and smoked, and then didn't realize how much I was smoking, and then it was like a little bit above and beyond. But as much of a shit show as it was, nobody won. Both sides think that they won. You can save yourself hundreds of hours worth of scrolling through these two continuing to go back and forth, even after the debate. Just watch the hour and a half debate. They said all the things they say on Twitter quickly. You can hear their responses to each other. You can understand what the dilemma is, and you can make an opinion for yourself. It's just so much better than trying to read through a bunch of comments and then there's a quote tweet, so now you gotta click through and figure out. I hate that crap. So that's honestly one of the main reasons I host debates, is I see a shit show Twitter thread and I go, let's put this into a much more digestible medium.
Yeah, it's efficient. It's efficient at communicating shit shows. It's just not efficient at like discerning a solution at all.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we wrap up, I want to give you guys both a chance to tell people how to find you and follow you, as well as the Caucus, and get a little bit more involved.
I am you can find me mostly on Twitter at, gotta remember my handle. I think it's Sergio for Liberty.
Yes.
You can find me there. Okay, yes. I have a Facebook, but that's mostly local politics. Local politics is just everything to me. Discord, I'm on the Classical Liberal Caucus Discord. You can find me there, message me there. You can email me, chair@lpclc.org. I'm reachable anywhere. I will talk to anyone because I'm just trying to get my ideas out there and to talk to people and maybe change a few minds every now and then.
For me, I've completely blown cover on Twitter. I'm Tommy Bunchanoms. But probably more reliable way to get a hold of me is through Discord. You can find me as Tommy Creuzer on the Classical Liberal Caucus Discord. The Discord is very active. It's a lot of fun. So I'd recommend people join.
Nice.
And the Caucus,
I don't think I'm in your server.
The Caucus is LP_CLC on Twitter. I think we have a Facebook. I think we have a Blue Sky, possibly.
We do. It's LPCLC.
Okay.
I just don't.
Yeah, I'm still taking the reins on a lot of the stuff from the past administrations. The LPCLC, the Discord is. Do we have the?
We do have a custom URL.
Yeah. Okay. So is it also LPCLC?
I don't. I'd have to look.
I'll quickly find that out. But yeah, we've got a Discord where a lot of our operations are done. Okay, it's LP_CLC. It looks like.
It's just discord.gg/CLC. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Discord.gg/CLC. Yeah.
Yeah. So Twitter, we got a website. I'm updating the website. There's a lot of cool things on the website. We're selling convention bundles. You get a T-shirt, a cup, and 2 buttons for $30, which is not too terrible price. All the money goes to our ability to show up at state conventions. It's paying strictly state convention fees. We recently raised enough to show up to Georgia. Our next goal is California, which is going to be a hefty state convention fee because it's California.
Yeah.
And that's everything.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys so much for coming on. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And folks, thank you so much for watching the stream. As always, you can follow me at David Fite, at Fight for Liberty, or at Free Speech Corp. Any of those will keep you updated on the show and the network and everything that's going on. And do not miss out. Come on back here next Wednesday, same place, same time, for my 200th episode of Fight for Liberty with my father, the one and only Spike Cohen. And I'm super excited. I think it's going to be his 4th time on the show. And I think with this, he becomes the most recurring guest. I think he passes Reed with this episode. So I'm stoked to ring in the 200th with him. Come on back. We'll talk about the You Are the Power, but also some of his personal philosophical journeys over the last year or two, and probably hatcheries and other things as well. So come on back for that. And until then, as always, keep up the fight.